Dallas Wings have announced right here. The Dallas Wings made franchise in WNBA attendance history with a pair of games at AA Center in downtown Dallas last season. Am I not mistaken to say that the Fever games were the ones that broke the record? It says here, the 3 games Dallas will host, or is it supposed to just Fever?
The Dallas Wings didn't just schedule 3 games at American Airlines Center. They unintentionally pulled the curtain back on the WNBA's real economy, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. This wasn't about fan experience, branding, or community outreach. This was a raw, data-driven admission that the league now revolves around a single traveling demand spike powerful enough to justify NBA-level operational costs. For decades, WNBA teams were trained to think small by necessity: smaller arenas, conservative projections, controlled expectations, and an unspoken fear of empty seats on television. That model didn't change gradually. It shattered the moment Caitlyn Clark stepped onto a road court and turned ordinary weeknight games into citywide events. Dallas learned the lesson the hard way last season when Indiana arrived and instantly generated more ticket demand, more secondary market activity, and more media attention than multiple Wings home games combined. One player. One night. One revenue surge so obvious that ignoring it would have been organizational malpractice. And that's why this announcement matters far beyond Dallas. You don't move games into a 19,000-seat NBA arena 8 months in advance unless you're operating with near certainty, not hope. The cost of staffing, security, staffing unions, concessions, broadcast logistics, and arena rental is enormous. Teams don't gamble at that scale. They calculate. They model. They project. And every projection told the same story: when Indiana comes to town, the old WNBA rules no longer apply. This is no longer a league guessing whether interest exists. It's a league reallocating infrastructure around one predictable traveling attraction. That's why these games weren't random. Chicago, Golden State, Indiana, all markets tied either directly or indirectly to Clark-driven demand curves. And Dallas won't be the last. They're just the first brave enough to say it out loud. The uncomfortable truth is that the WNBA didn't suddenly discover growth, it discovered leverage. Caitlyn Clark didn't just bring fans, she brought pricing power, venue power, scheduling power, and for the first time in league history, the confidence to abandon the small arena safety net. This isn't organic growth bubbling up evenly across franchises. This is targeted monetization following one jersey across the map. And once teams realize they only get one chance, one Fever visit, one sellout opportunity, one night to capture casual fans who might never return, every conservative instinct disappears. Scarcity becomes the weapon. Bigger arenas become mandatory. Premium pricing becomes justified. And suddenly, the league that spent years downplaying star-centric economics is quietly restructuring its entire season around them. Dallas didn't make franchise history because they believed harder, they made it because the math forced their hand. And that math is now staring every front office in the face, daring them to pretend this is still just another regular season. And once that realization sets in, everything else about the 2025 season starts to look less like coincidence and more like coordination. Because the moment you accept that one visiting team can outperform your entire home slate in revenue, the question stops being should we move the game, and becomes how big can we go without leaving money on the table? That's the shift Dallas is signaling. This isn't about optimism, it's about inevitability. When front offices sit down with their revenue teams, they're no longer asking whether interest will show up, they're asking how to control it, how to price it, and how to prevent it from cannibalizing the rest of their schedule. That's why these announcements are happening early. Not because teams want to hype fans, but because they need time to manage expectations. You don't want season ticket holders shocked when one game costs double. You don't want backlash when premium nights are excluded from packages. You normalize it months in advance so it feels strategic instead of exploitative. And here's the part the league won't say publicly: this model only works when scarcity is guaranteed. Last season, Indiana felt omnipresent. Some markets saw them twice. Some even 3 times. That diluted urgency. This season, the fever are a one-night phenomenon in most cities, and scarcity is the most powerful pricing tool in sports. One game means one sellout target, one marketing push, one viral crowd shot, one chance to convert casual curiosity into ticket revenue. That's why small arenas instantly become liabilities. Hosting the league's most in-demand attraction in a 6,000-seat building isn't intimacy, it's lost income. And teams know it. That's why the moment schedules locked, arena availability conversations started. NBA buildings that once felt too big suddenly feel efficient. Upper bowls that were once closed for optics are now assets. Empty seats are no longer the fear, unmet demand is. And that psychological shift is enormous. It flips the league's entire risk profile. Instead of avoiding embarrassment, teams are chasing upside. They're willing to accept some emptiness if it means capturing a historic night. And they're betting that even on a bad day, Caitlyn Clark curiosity alone will keep floors high enough to justify the expense. That's not blind faith, that's market testing already done. Last season proved it in real time, city after city, resale market after resale market. Fans didn't just show up, they paid. And they paid fast. And once you see that behavior repeat across geographies, demographics, and price points, it stops being hype and starts being a traveling economic constant. That's why Dallas's move matters more than attendance numbers ever could. Attendance reacts. Infrastructure predicts. And infrastructure decisions don't get reversed easily. When franchises restructure their operations, staffing, security, and marketing around one opponent, that opponent isn't just popular, it's foundational. This is the WNBA quietly acknowledging that its growth engine isn't evenly distributed, and instead of fighting that reality, teams are finally exploiting it. The uncomfortable irony is that for years, the league resisted star-centric framing out of fear it would undermine collective progress. But now, in practice, it's leaning into the exact thing it publicly downplayed. Not with slogans. Not with press releases. But with arena contracts, premium pricing tiers, and long-range scheduling decisions that lock in months before a single ball is tipped. And once that line is crossed, there's no pretending this is just another season. The Dallas Wings didn't make history because ignoring the Caitlyn Clark effect would have been the most expensive mistake they could make. And every other franchise knows it, and that's where this stops being a Dallas story and turns into a league-wide exposure of priorities. Because once one franchise publicly commits to NBA-scale venues for a single opponent, every other front office is forced into the same internal conversation whether they admit it or not. You can't sit in a budget meeting pretending neutrality when your competitor is projecting a single night to outperform a quarter of your home schedule. You can't claim parity when one jersey dictates whether your upper bowl opens or stays dark. And you definitely can't keep selling the myth that attendance spikes are abstract or social media driven when real money is already being spent to chase them. This is the moment the WNBA crossed from curiosity into commodification, where fandom becomes forecastable and interest becomes monetizable at scale. The most revealing part isn't that teams are moving games, it's that they're doing it without hesitation. No pilot programs. No wait and see. No cautious language. These decisions are being locked in before preseason camps, before storylines develop, before records exist. That means the draw isn't dependent on standings, rivalries, or playoff implications. It's independent demand. And independent demand is gold in sports economics because it survives context. It doesn't matter if Indiana is 1st or 10th. It doesn't matter if the matchup is nationally televised or buried on a weekday. The building still fills because the attraction travels with the player, not the product. That's why the league's old logic collapses here. For years, WNBA leadership emphasized balance, collectivity, and system-first growth because the infrastructure couldn't support star-driven volatility. But Caitlyn Clark didn't introduce volatility, she introduced Predictability. Every market tested her. Every market got the same result. And once predictability exists, businesses scale. That's the part fans underestimate. Teams aren't reacting emotionally, they're reacting structurally. They're redesigning their seasons around a known spike the same way concerts, boxing promotions, and major tours do. One night becomes an event. An event becomes a premium asset. A premium asset justifies a premium venue. And once that chain is in motion, it doesn't reverse because of online debates or media discomfort. It only reverses if demand collapses, and nothing from last season suggests that's remotely likely. In fact, the opposite happened. Prices held. Resale markets thrived. Casual fans showed up. First-timers came through doors that had never opened for them before. That's why this moment is so dangerous for the league's old narratives. You can't argue sustainability is uncertain while teams are signing arena agreements that assume sustained interest. You can't claim the effect is overstated while executives are betting six-figure operating costs on a single date. And you can't pretend this is evenly distributed growth when one team's road schedule is quietly underwriting half the league's revenue optimism. Dallas didn't just move games, they validated a truth the league has been tiptoeing around since Clark entered the draft. The WNBA doesn't have a marketing problem anymore. It has a value allocation problem. One team generates disproportionate demand, and everyone else is racing to extract their share before the window shifts. That urgency explains everything: the early announcements, the bigger buildings, the premium framing, the careful conditioning of fans months in advance. This isn't chaos, it's adaptation. And adaptation only happens when the old model stops working. The small arena, low-risk, modest expectation era didn't die quietly, it was outgrown. And the Dallas Wings, whether they intended to or not, just put the